I spent $26,000 to save my parents' home, and they kicked me and my kids out of Christmas dinner. Can you imagine? Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Tess Harper. I am a single mother of two, Liam, 9, and Sophie, 7. My parents, Gloria and Walter Harper, have always been controlling and proud. When I found out their home was about to be foreclosed, I emptied my savings to help them. Every dollar I had went toward keeping the house in their name. I thought they would be grateful. Christmas came, and I brought my kids to the family dinner, hoping for warmth and thanks. Instead, I was humiliated. Walter mocked my financial situation, and Gloria openly criticized me in front of relatives. I tried to explain how I saved the house, but they shouted me down and demanded we leave. Liam and Sophie cried, confused and scared. I couldn't believe my parents could treat us like this. Driving home in silence, I felt a mix of heartbreak and anger. I realized they could not be trusted, and I had to protect myself and my kids. Quietly, I gathered proof of my $26,000 contribution. I consulted a lawyer and prepared to claim what I rightfully deserved. I returned calmly, showing evidence of my sacrifice. My parents' arrogance crumbled. I gained respect, independence, and the life my children deserve. That Christmas, I learned a harsh truth: betrayal can hurt, but it can also make you unstoppable. Sometimes revenge isn't loud, it's simply living better than those who tried to break you. When I first saw the foreclosure notice on my parents' home, my heart sank. Their pride had kept them from asking for help, but I knew I had to act fast. I started pulling together every bit of money I could spare. In the end, I managed to gather $26,000 from my savings, money I had been keeping for my kids' future. Every dollar came at a cost. I skipped new clothes, canceled holiday treats, and put Liam and Sophie's Christmas presents aside. Nights were sleepless as I worried about whether my parents would even accept the help. I convinced myself it didn't matter, I just wanted the house saved, the home where they had raised me. When I told them I had gathered the money, I expected relief, maybe even gratitude. Instead, their reaction cut deeper than I imagined. Gloria waved her hand dismissively, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing. Walter frowned and muttered that I was too dramatic. My heart twisted. All that sacrifice, all that stress, treated like it was a childish overreaction. I felt the first real sting of betrayal. They didn't see my effort or my love, they only saw what they considered my fault or flaw. I had risked my own comfort, put my children's joy aside, and worked tirelessly to protect their home, and it wasn't enough. Their pride overshadowed everything. Even then, I held on to hope that maybe they would come around, that they would at least acknowledge my sacrifice. I just didn't realize yet that the deeper betrayal was waiting for me, one that would hit harder than any foreclosure notice ever could. Christmas finally arrived, and I decided to bring Liam and Sophie to the annual family dinner. I thought the warmth of the season might soften my parents' pride. As we walked in, the house looked magical. Twinkling lights framed the windows, the tree sparkled with ornaments, and the scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air. My kids' eyes lit up, and for a moment, I felt hope. Gloria greeted us with a forced smile, and Walter gave a curt nod. They seemed polite, almost cheerful, but something felt off. The laughter around the table was light, yet I sensed an edge beneath the surface, like we were intruding in someone else's celebration. I tried to shake the feeling, focusing on making the evening special for my children. As dinner progressed, small remarks began to sting. Gloria casually mentioned how I probably wouldn't manage everything perfectly with the holiday preparations, and Walter made a joking comment about how helping the house was no small favor. It was subtle, but the meaning was clear. They reminded me that my sacrifice was somehow an obligation, not a gift. I forced a smile, trying to ignore it, but the words settled in my chest like a cold weight. I had imagined gratitude, warmth, and recognition, but instead, I felt the first real sense of being unappreciated and undervalued. My efforts, my sleepless nights, the money I had spent to save their home, none of it mattered in their eyes. Even amid the festive decorations, I realized that the cozy scene was only a facade. The tension beneath the smiles whispered a warning: this Christmas, nothing would be simple, and my children and I were about to face a betrayal I hadn't anticipated. Dinner was just getting started when Walter leaned back in his chair and let out a sharp laugh. "I guess money really can't buy common sense," he said, glancing at me. The words landed like a punch. I froze, unsure how to respond, while Liam and Sophie looked confused. Before I could speak, Gloria chimed in, her tone dripping with judgment. "Honestly, Tess, I expected more from you. You could have done better. You always try, but it's never enough." She shook her head slowly, making sure everyone at the table saw her disappointment. The warmth I had hoped for vanished instantly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Every effort, every sacrifice I had made to save their home, dismissed in front of our relatives. My chest tightened as humiliation spread through me. The same parents who had relied on me, whose house I had saved with my own money, were now treating me like a failure. Liam tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "Mom, why are they being mean?" Sophie buried her face in my arm. My heart ached, both for my kids and for myself. I felt anger, shock, and disbelief all at once. I wanted to defend myself, to make them see what I had done, but the words stuck in my throat. Their pride was louder than any truth I could speak. I realized in that moment that the betrayal ran deeper than money or effort. It was about control, about making me feel small even after I had saved everything they held dear. Sitting there, in the middle of that decorated dining room, I understood one painful truth: the parents I had tried to honor had no intention of honoring me back. Their cruelty was public, undeniable, and unforgettable. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I worked hard to save this house," I said quietly, looking at my parents. "I gave everything I had so this home wouldn't be lost. I did it for you." Gloria's lips pressed into a thin line, and Walter's eyes narrowed. Instead of listening, they leaned in, voices rising. "You don't get to lecture us, Tess," Walter snapped. "We don't need your money or your lessons. Now pack up and leave." Gloria pointed toward the door, her voice sharp. "Take your children and go. You've caused enough trouble tonight. We don't want you here." My stomach sank. The room blurred as relatives exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to intervene. Liam clung to my hand, eyes wide with confusion. Sophie's little shoulders shook as she buried her face into my coat. Their tears made my own heart shatter. Rage and sorrow collided inside me. I had come with hope, bringing my kids to celebrate, believing that family mattered. But instead, we were being rejected, cast out like strangers. I wanted to scream, to tell them how cruel they were, but I swallowed the words, holding my children close. I gathered our coats, my hands trembling, and gently ushered Liam and Sophie toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. The house we had once called home, the place I had fought to protect, now felt foreign and cold. Outside, the winter air bit at my cheeks, but it was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. My children's sobs mixed with my own silent heartbreak. In that moment, I realized one terrible truth: love and sacrifice meant nothing to them. And yet, even through the pain, I knew I couldn't break. The car ride home was quiet, the engine humming softly as Liam and Sophie sat with tear-streaked faces. I gripped the steering wheel, staring at the dark road ahead, trying to process everything that had just happened. Their small hands rested in mine, seeking comfort I wasn't sure I had to give. My mind kept replaying their words, the harsh tone, the cold dismissal. How could the people who brought me into this world treat me, and my children, like intruders? Every memory of my sacrifice, every sleepless night spent worrying about their home, felt invisible. The sting of betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined. Anger bubbled under my skin. How dare they judge me after everything I had done? How dare they try to make me feel guilty for protecting the very roof over their heads? And yet, sadness followed closely, heavy and relentless, as I looked at Liam rubbing his eyes and Sophie clutching her doll for reassurance. It hit me with painful clarity: I couldn't depend on them. Not now, not ever. Their pride and selfishness had always been there, but tonight it had been laid bare. I had tried to show love, respect, and care, and it had been met with cruelty. My family, the people I thought I could count on, had chosen rejection instead of gratitude. A quiet determination began to grow within me. If I wanted my children to feel safe, valued, and loved, I had to step up. No one else would protect us. No one else would fight for our dignity. The house was saved, but my trust in them was gone. As the streetlights passed by, I promised myself that I would build a life where betrayal couldn't touch us, and where my kids would never have to feel the shame or hurt I had just endured. After days of sitting in silence, I realized I couldn't let their arrogance go unanswered. My parents had humiliated me and my children, dismissing everything I had done. I decided it was time to take control, not with anger, but with strategy. I needed to ensure that my efforts would be recognized and protected. I began learning about my legal rights concerning the house. Though it was in my parents' names, my $26,000 had been essential to prevent foreclosure. I studied documents, laws, and precedents, determined to understand every option available to me. It wasn't just about money, it was about fairness, acknowledgement, and safeguarding my children from further mistreatment. Quietly, I started gathering all relevant documentation. Bank statements, transfer receipts, and notes about conversations regarding the house filled a folder. Every email, phone record, and proof of payment became part of the evidence I would use. I even noted the timeline of my sacrifices, from working extra shifts to skipping personal expenses to keep the house afloat. The process was painstaking, but each piece of evidence strengthened my resolve. I realized that preparation was power. By organizing everything carefully, I was creating a shield that would prevent my parents from dismissing my role in preserving the home. In those long nights, I transformed frustration into action. The fear and sadness that had weighed on me began to shift into determination. I wasn't just fighting for recognition, I was laying the groundwork for justice, a way to reclaim dignity for myself and my children. For the first time since that fateful Christmas, I felt a sense of direction. The house, my children, and my peace of mind would no longer be at the mercy of prideful cruelty. I was preparing to face my parents with strength, and this time I would not be ignored. I knew I couldn't face my parents' cruelty alone, so I reached out to Jonathan Miles, a lawyer my family had trusted for years. I explained everything, how I had saved the house, the humiliation at Christmas, and the way my children had been treated. Jonathan listened carefully, nodding as I laid out every detail. His calm confidence gave me a flicker of hope I hadn't felt in days. Next, I quietly contacted neighbors and distant relatives who had witnessed my efforts. They remembered how tirelessly I had worked to keep the house from being lost. Some had offered advice at the time, others had simply watched, recognizing my dedication. Each conversation reminded me that I wasn't entirely alone. People had seen my sacrifices, and many quietly supported me. I started documenting everything meticulously. Every phone call, every meeting, every conversation became part of a record. Notes, receipts, dates, nothing was too small to include. I even wrote down my children's reactions, the fear and confusion in their voices. It wasn't just about proving my contribution anymore, it was about creating a shield for us, something that could protect our dignity and ensure we weren't dismissed again. With Jonathan's guidance and the support of those who remembered my efforts, I felt a growing sense of control. For the first time since that terrible Christmas, I wasn't just reacting, I was planning, gathering evidence, and building a foundation to stand strong against my parents' pride and arrogance. I realized that allies, even distant ones, could make a difference. And while my parents had humiliated me in front of others, I was quietly assembling a network that would turn the tables. This was no longer just about anger or hurt, it was about securing justice for my children and myself. A few days later, I returned to my parents' house, pretending it was just to talk about family matters. Liam and Sophie stayed home, safe and unaware of the confrontation I was about to face. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady, determined to show them the truth without losing control. I spread out the documents I had collected, receipts, bank transfers, and records proving my $26,000 contribution. Each paper told the story of late nights, sacrifices, and unwavering dedication to keeping their home. I also included notes detailing their attempts to legally dismiss my involvement, showing that their arrogance had crossed into wrongdoing. Gloria's eyes flicked over the papers, and she tried to wave them off with a dismissive hand. "This isn't necessary," she said, attempting to maintain her composure. Walter, however, stiffened, his jaw tight. He leaned forward, scanning each page, realizing that the evidence left no room for denial. I spoke calmly, explaining everything I had done and how they had treated me and my children unfairly. The room, once filled with a false sense of holiday warmth, felt tense and brittle. The power had shifted quietly, but unmistakably. For the first time, I saw hesitation in their eyes. Gloria's attempts to brush it off faltered, and Walter's defensive stance wavered. They were faced with undeniable proof of my sacrifice and their mistreatment. I remained composed, showing no anger, only facts. The silent impact of truth struck harder than any shouting could have. In that moment, I felt a sense of quiet triumph. I wasn't asking for approval or apology, I was claiming recognition for what I had done. And as my parents realized they couldn't dismiss the evidence, I knew the first step toward justice had been taken. With the evidence in hand and Jonathan guiding me, I moved to secure formal recognition for my contribution to the house. Through legal channels, I was able to establish partial control, ensuring that my efforts were officially acknowledged. It wasn't about revenge, it was about protecting what I had worked so hard for and keeping my children safe from further neglect. As word quietly spread, extended family and neighbors began offering support. Many had seen the sacrifices I had made and were shocked by the way my parents had treated me. Calls and visits came, not for confrontation, but to acknowledge my dedication and to stand by me. Their encouragement strengthened my resolve, turning private frustration into public validation. Gloria and Walter had built their lives on appearances and pride, but now their carefully maintained image started to crack. Invitations to neighbors and family gatherings became awkward. Conversations that once flowed smoothly now faltered, as relatives questioned why they had dismissed my efforts. They shifted uncomfortably, realizing their actions were no longer invisible or ignored. I watched the change quietly. There were no arguments, no dramatic confrontations, just the subtle weight of awareness settling on them. For the first time, they faced the consequences of their pride and selfishness. Embarrassment replaced arrogance, and regret slowly colored their expressions. It was empowering to see that truth could hold influence without shouting. I had transformed helplessness into leverage, proving that determination and patience could turn even the deepest betrayal into justice. My children's future was secure, and I felt a sense of calm satisfaction. The house was no longer just a symbol of my sacrifice, it had become a testament to resilience and quiet triumph. And as I stood with the support of those who mattered, I realized that the balance had finally shifted, in our favor. I arranged a quiet visit to the house, this time without my children. I wanted them to understand something important, without any audience, no relatives, no neighbors, no distractions. The tension was palpable as I calmly laid out the facts once more, this time highlighting how their stubbornness and pride had only caused themselves problems. Gloria's eyes flickered with unease, and Walter's face tightened. I spoke softly but firmly, showing them that I had moved forward, that I could manage my life and my children's needs without relying on their approval or gratitude. Every word was deliberate, each sentence a reminder that my independence was complete. I didn't need to yell or argue. Their own conscience filled the room. I watched as realization dawned slowly on their faces. The very house they thought they controlled now bore my mark, secured because of my decisions, not theirs. My efforts, once dismissed, had created a foundation they couldn't ignore. The subtle shift was deeply satisfying. I felt no triumph in cruelty, only a quiet confidence in my ability to protect my children and myself. They were forced to acknowledge that their greed and pride had backfired, leaving them to confront regret on their own. Gloria avoided my gaze, and Walter's jaw tightened as he struggled with unspoken admission. I left the house that day feeling lighter than I had in months. My independence was no longer theoretical, it was real, visible, and undeniable. The knowledge that I could maintain security and dignity for my children without their support brought a deep sense of peace. Sometimes, the most profound payback doesn't come from words or anger, it comes from standing strong, moving forward, and letting those who tried to hurt you see that you have not only survived but thrived. After everything with my parents, I knew it was time to focus on building a life just for me and my children. I found a modest house in a quiet neighborhood and used my savings to make it our own. Every corner of that home reflected safety, warmth, and love, a space where Liam and Sophie could grow without fear or judgment. At the same time, I started a small business, something I had always dreamed of but never had the courage to pursue. It wasn't easy, but every effort paid off. I discovered independence not only in finances but in confidence. I no longer felt tethered to the whims or opinions of those who had tried to hurt me. I also cultivated a circle of supportive friends and relatives who truly cared about us. They celebrated our successes, helped in difficult moments, and offered guidance without criticism. For the first time, I felt surrounded by people who respected me and my decisions, who encouraged my growth rather than trying to undermine it. Liam and Sophie flourished in this new environment. Their laughter filled the house, free from the tension and shame we had experienced before. I watched them learn, play, and dream without the weight of judgment hanging over them. Seeing their happiness reinforced every choice I had made. Every morning, I felt a sense of pride and calm. The past, with all its betrayal and hurt, could not touch us anymore. I had created a safe, loving space where my children and I could thrive, and in doing so, I had found the strength to believe in myself fully. This chapter of our lives was not just about survival, it was about flourishing. I had turned pain into purpose, building opportunities that no one could take away and proving that love and perseverance could triumph over any hardship. Looking back on that dreadful Christmas, I realize now how much it shaped me. The betrayal, the humiliation, and the cold dismissal from Gloria and Walter forced me to grow in ways I never expected. I became resilient, decisive, and unshakable. Their rejection, which once felt unbearable, became the foundation for my strength. I made a conscious choice not to reach out to them. Any regret or discomfort they felt was theirs alone, and I watched quietly from a distance, knowing I no longer needed their approval or affection. The past no longer had power over my life. I had built a world where my children and I could thrive, and nothing they said or did could change that. The following Christmas, our home was filled with warmth, laughter, and gratitude. Liam and Sophie ran around, decorating the tree and exchanging small gifts, their eyes bright with joy. I felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that we were safe, respected, and loved on our own terms. There was no fear, no judgment, and no lingering tension, just the quiet happiness we had worked so hard to earn. Sitting with my children, sipping hot cocoa and watching the lights reflect in their smiles, I understood the full meaning of what I had endured. The pain, the sacrifices, and the struggle had all led to this moment of freedom and triumph. I had turned betrayal into empowerment, creating a life that no one could undermine. Sometimes, revenge isn't loud, it's simply living better than those who tried to break you. That truth guided every choice I made, and it continues to remind me that strength and happiness are the most powerful forms of justice.